the joy of owning a practice, there's so much more that I didn't recognize. And I knew I wanted to do it because my brain was entrepreneurial. At 9 years old, I had it's so funny now, but I had full babysitting gigs. Like I was like,
Wow.
I know. You think now, I looked at my 9-year-olds and I was like, goodness sakes, I was managing 4 kids and dinner and night and had them all in bed at time. But I
That's
always
impressive.
had multiple little businesses. I had pet businesses going on. And so I didn't realize how wonderful it could be to be impactful in your community in such a strong way and create great jobs for people. Like the joy that comes from that is over, like, just to look and be like, I create great jobs for people in my community, and we care for our community deeply, and we're a pillar in our community. And that it's just, you can't even describe what that feels like. And I didn't understand that till I got to do it.
Hello, and welcome to the Evolve Vets podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bethany Weinheimer. Hi, friend. If you're new here, hit the follow so you don't miss what's ahead. And if you're ready to take this work beyond the podcast, you can learn more about my coaching program and membership at theevolvevets.com. Hello, and welcome to the Evolve Vets podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bethany Weinheimer, and today we are here with Dr. Christine Staten. And Christine, we met online. I followed you for years. I love the fact that you just are so authentic. You have such a positive mindset around veterinary medicine. You overcome challenges, but you do it in such a lighthearted and positive way. You're open-minded to coaching and your mindset practice. You're making yourself go into uncomfortable situations to make yourself deeper and better. And that's always shown up so authentic. And not only that, but you're an amazing mother, a grandmother, and you run your own practice. You just are the champion of all.
Oh.
And you recently started your veterinary MBA membership. And so that you just have so many amazing things and wonderful things to look up to. And I know many of the members in the Evolve Vets membership look up to you as well. And so I'm so honored to have you on the podcast today. So that way everyone can get to know you a little bit deeper and we can kind of dive into what your mindset is behind everything and the practices that have led you here. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. And that was such a kind introduction. I hope I can live up to that.
Absolutely, you will.
Yeah. So my journey in vet med is that from 5 years old, I knew that I wanted to be an obstetrician.
Not a veterinarian. Plot twist.
100%. Yes, plot twist. 100% I wanted to be an obstetrician. I spent all of my life thinking about it. In high school, I started a pre-med club. In college, I was a pre-med student. I took my MCATs. I applied to medical school. Nothing ever crossed my mind other than you are going to be an obstetrician. I worked in labor and delivery for 7 years. I saw over 1,000 babies born. I knew that was my path. And then I went to my medical school interviews. And back then, there was no Zoom. So it was live interviews. And my first 7 interviewers asked me why I didn't want to be a veterinarian. Isn't that crazy?
Wow, that's so crazy. What was it about the interview? Were you talking about animals during the interview?
Yeah, so I thought the same thing. Why are they asking this ridiculous question? I don't want to, I'm here to go to medical school. I'm going to be an obstetrician. And so I actually came home from that and had to think through because I stumbled over the response. And the reason they were asking me was super logical. I was a 4-H kid. I grew up as a 4-H kid. I raised 7 different kinds of animals. I showed goats and rabbits all over the United States. There was a point that I had over 100 rabbits that I showed all over.
Wow.
And I raised goats. We raised golden retrievers. We showed them. That was my whole life. But also all of my leadership qualities came from 4-H. And raising animals, all of my character qualities came from it. All of my community service was related to animals. It was a very logical question. I was oblivious to this. But I came home and I thought, I know, it's embarrassing now, but I thought, I need to script an answer to this question because people are going to keep asking it, and I have more interviews to do. So I sat down and I literally put pen to paper And I had the strongest, like, lightning bolt moment, and I was like, "Why don't I wanna be a veterinarian?" Literally.
This is insane. Oh my
Insane.
gosh.
And so the analytical me made 2 papers, pro con physician, pro con veterinarian. And it's almost embarrassing because I think most vets I meet are like, "My puppy died from parvo when I was 5, and I knew from that moment on I wanted to be a vet." And I do not have that story. My story is not emotional, it's very analytical. And so I made my pro con list, and as I went through it, the things that hit on the pro list for veterinarian were not animals, which is embarrassing, but it was entrepreneurship. I can own my own practice way easier in veterinary medicine. And the other big one that stood out to me was I didn't have to do an internship, residency, and fellowship. And I was married early. While I was applying to medical school, I was married, and I knew I wanted to have a lot of kids, and I knew I wanted to have them early. And my husband was going to need to have a job, and to move from town to town with kids and job and family not present wasn't an appealing thing. And so I spent probably, I say a week now, but I think it was less than a week, talking to physicians and veterinarians like a crazy person and meeting with them and asking them all these questions. And by the end of the week, I pulled all my medical school applications. So I'll never know if I got in because I didn't want to know. Because after going that far, I thought if I get accepted and turn it down, I don't know that I would have if I had gotten acceptance. So I was like, "Oh, I'll just apply to veterinary school." And then I was like, "Oh, I don't have enough coursework to do that." I had to go back to college as a pregnant newlywed and take classes, but it also allowed me to generate income. So I worked full time in labor and delivery while I did that, and then went to veterinary school. And I know that it was the right decision, but I also don't think like there's a perfect plan for everyone. I think if I would have gone to medical school, I would have been a fine obstetrician. Like, I'm not worried about that, but this career path has opened up so many opportunities, and I want to go back and write so many more things on the pro list
What would
that
you
I didn't
add
know.
now that you maybe didn't have when you were applying?
Flexibility. Like, we can do 1,000 things with this degree and do them tomorrow. Like, I could change my clinic tomorrow and say, "We're a bird clinic," tomorrow.
Yeah,
And
that's
we
actually
are.
so true.
And or work for the USDA and inspect meat for human health safety and industry jobs and regulatory medicine. Like, it's insane. And that's why I think I'm so sad when I hear anyone sad in this profession, because if you're sad, go do something else with your degree. Your degree is so incredible. And
Yeah.
there's 1,000 things you can do with it.
There's so many different avenues. And there's might be different seasons too where you maybe
Yes.
make a pivot, right? There might be seasons where you lean really deep into clinical practice, or a season where you start your own practice, or maybe a season where you completely take a pause and
Yes.
focus on the family,
Yes.
or completely shift into industry, whatever it might be. I think sometimes veterinarians can be such high performers that there's only one path to be or look successful. And so we need to kind of expand our minds and
Yes.
see other people who could be mentors and role models. They could say like, "Oh yeah, that person is doing conservation medicine in South Africa.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing that I could do with my career too if I wanted to. Or I could start a small
Exactly.
business." I mean,
Exactly.
that's pretty much what both of us did,
Yes.
right?
100%. Yeah. Or there's so many things you can do to be with your family during a season. And I think if I look at my classmates, many of them have had 3 or 4 different career paths. Whereas if I had become an obstetrician, I couldn't say tomorrow, "I want to be a pediatrician." I have to go back for like 4 or 5 years of education. So,
Yeah. You can't
yeah,
pivot that
you
easily.
can't pivot. And we just can pivot tomorrow. Like, it's crazy to me.
I completely agree. So flexibility, is there anything else that you'd add to the list?
I think that's the big one. I think the joy of owning a practice, there's so much more that I didn't recognize. And I knew I wanted to do it because my brain was entrepreneurial. At 9 years old, I had like, it's so funny now, but I had full babysitting gigs. Like, I was like,
Wow.
I know. You think now, like, I looked at my 9-year-olds and I was like, goodness sakes, I was managing 4 kids and dinner and night and had them all in bed at time. But I
That's
always
impressive.
had multiple little businesses. I had pet businesses going on. And so I didn't realize how wonderful it could be to be impactful in your community in such a strong way and create great jobs for people. Like the joy that comes from that is over, like, just to look and be like, I create great jobs for people in my community, and we care for our community deeply, and we're a pillar in our community. And that, it's just, you can't even describe what that feels like. And I didn't understand that till I got to do it.
Yeah, that's a very special bond.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. So you decided to make the pivot and you're like, all right, I'm going to take extra courses. I'm going to vet
Yeah.
school. What happened next?
Yeah, I took 3 years to take classes because I went slowly because I wanted to work, and I was literally had a baby during that time. And then went to Colorado State University because it was the closest one to my home. I literally looked on a map and I was like, that's closest. I applied to 3. I got into all 3, and that was the closest. So went there for 4 years, had another baby in veterinary school, and then moved home as fast as I could. I missed Tucson, Arizona as my home. I missed having family around, and joined a solo ambulatory doctor. It was my vet growing up. She had been in practice 20 years. She had no employees. I was her first employee.
Wow.
Yeah. So I knew her really well. And I told her on day one, like, I want to buy in. And back then, that was the plan. Like, you get an associate, they buy in, you phase out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was pretty normal. But I said, I want to buy in pretty quickly, and I want to do big things with this practice. I really want to grow and scale it. And she was in my first contract, we had a 5-year path to practice ownership.
Wow.
And then I bought in within 3 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then we grew that practice. When I say we, I had the best 50-50 business partner in the world, because she just backed up and said, do whatever you want. I think she had maybe 5% input. And whenever she had input, I valued it, even if she disagreed with something I wanted to do, because it was so, she only brought stuff in when she felt really strongly about it. And now I have a practice that she is, since 10 years ago, she retired, so I'm the sole owner, that is 55 team members, 11 veterinarians. I have a large animal practice and a small animal practice across the street from each other, and I live on site with the large animal practice. Like, it is the dream of dreams for me. It's what I wanted it to look like.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. So you're living your dream. When you think about your dream at the Evolve Vets, we often talk about like our aligned values and what those might look like. So what are your values when you say I'm living the dream? Like, what are the things that, when you paint a picture of your ideal life, what are you living out today that you always wanted?
Well, stewardship is one of my huge personal core values. Like, I want to take care of the community. I think a thriving community and a thriving practice or any business is so interdependent on each other. So stewardship is huge. And creating our practice is everyone there. Everyone knows they're a learner, a grower, a teacher, and a trainer. And you do not work for me unless you want to learn, grow, teach, and train. And so we've created this very good environment where everyone wants to learn and grow and teach and train. And that culture, it doesn't have to be in every practice, but it's one that's really important to us. And then legacy is huge for me. Like, I want something that lives beyond me in my community. And as I'm making decisions, I'm trying to create something that can do that.
That's amazing. So I'm curious, you said that you were able to, when you first got out of vet school, sign a contract that basically allowed a buy-in within, or ownership plan within 5 years. If there was a veterinarian graduating today that wanted to do something similar and go, back to their roots and buy into a practice, like, what advice would you have for them?
We didn't know what we were doing. She'd never had an associate. I'd never been an associate. So we got an attorney. And I would suggest, in hindsight, nothing went wrong with it, but I think each party should have their own attorney that talk and figure out a contract that makes the most sense. And there's a lot of veterinary specific attorneys. There's a lot of brokers now that can help with that. And the legal stuff, I don't know. I don't know how strongly that could be upheld if she said, I don't want to sell you the practice. I don't know. But back then, that's how practice is transferred. That was the exit strategy for everybody. There weren't corporate consolidators. There wasn't venture capital out there buying practices. So if you either closed your practice or you sold it to your associate. In most cases, it was rare that there was an outside buyer. At least that was my understanding.
I love it. Okay, great
So we
advice.
just did it. We just were like, this is what we're going to do.
When you think about stewardship and building a culture around your hospital, what were like the foundational pieces that you brought in to really set the stage for being able to not only you live out that value of stewardship, but teach it to the people in your hospital as well?
Well, for 15 years, I didn't. So for the first 15 years of practice ownership, we were growing. We were definitely growing and scaling, but we were doing it wrong most of the times. And I see when we talk about doing it wrong, I say we, like, but it was me. My first 5 associates, I either fired or quit within a year. Like, I was not good. It took me 5 to realize I was the common denominator, right?
It happens to all of us
Yeah.
at some point.
I hit every pothole, every speed bump. I did everything wrong. I didn't know how to be a good leader. I didn't know how to be a good manager. Very different skills, leader and manager. Didn't know that. I was everything. I was HR. I was, when we didn't have somebody in our boarding facility, I was pet resort attendant. I was also full-time ambulatory veterinarian. Like, I didn't know how to teach and train people well, orient them, onboard them. Like, I was bad at it. I was not as good a leader as I had hoped to be. I was definitely not a good manager. And so, I mean, I wasn't a horrible person. We were growing, but I did much wrong. And then it was when my the other veterinarian actually retired 10 years ago that I said, do we even have core values? Do we have a vision and a mission statement? I don't even know where those are. We've never talked about this. And I found them in our business plan, and I realized we did not write them. Like, our attorney wrote a business plan for us to get a loan, for me to get a loan for us to build our building, and they wrote it for us. And so it wasn't even ours, and we'd never used it. And I actually went away and to a hotel room and locked myself up for a few days and just got really deep into visionary work and strategic planning in my own mind. Like, what do I want? This is mine now. What can I do differently? And vision, mission, core values, I did it in isolation. I didn't talk to my family, my friends, my team. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but for me, it was the right way to do it. And then things changed dramatically. Now we're going to start strategic planning. We're going to start, I guess it was a few years before she retired that a little bit of this started. We started strategic planning. And I thought, I can build the culture that I want. I can create a team-centric practice, which I didn't know the term. Now I think I hear it. In fact, there was a lecture about it at this conference that we're at. But I thought, if I focus on my team and the culture, I don't even know if culture was the word I ever thought, we can take care of pets better. We can take care of clients better. We can make more money. We can be more efficient. We can be more impactful in our community. So turning it to, let's create this culture, happened during that trip when I went away and locked myself in a hotel room.
I love that. Sometimes the best clarity comes from those moments where you just get really still and tune in to like what your body wants, strategic planning, really sitting down and kind of writing. I don't know about you, but for me, like getting really quiet and journaling
Yes.
or, writing it out,
Yes.
depending on what you think. And then like really sitting in my body and understanding, okay, this is the right path. This is where I need to go. There's been many moments that were pivotal for me in my career where I had to sit down and be like, okay, is this what I want today? Can things be done differently? And often that comes from the isolation part where you're just like
Yes.
getting within. Because sometimes the influence that we get from the outside world can add on different layers that maybe it isn't true to us. And
Yeah.
getting core to those authentic values is really the thing that kind of leads it down the right path. I love that so much. What a great story.
I wish I would have known that earlier. Like, I have to get away from the distractions because I love my practices. I want to physically be in both of them all day, every day when I'm home. I want to interact with my team, and I can't do visionary work and personal work in myself to make myself a better leader when I'm deep in those situations. And I wish I would have known that earlier. The CEO day is so important.
It's so important. And I love that you're bringing this up because this is often like as we learn and coach women leaders, it's the people that limit themselves are usually the ones saying, oh, I just don't have the time. So what did you do in your life to actually make time for this, like, pause, the quiet, the getting still to be like, "Okay, this actually does help me more than accomplishing the things on my to-do list. It helps me more to have this moment of silence and reconnection with myself."
Yeah, I started to get around other leaders, not veterinary specific. I started to seek out rooms with people who were creatives, who were doing it really well, and see how they functioned. And they function by isolation, they function with thinking in a quiet place. And I'm a Catholic that wakes up in the morning, and when I do this well, I don't always. And if I start my morning by just quiet time with scripture, my day is different. And I was like, wait, I should do that for my business. Find some quiet time where I can really just be focused on what is best for my business. And so that worked for me. And we then, around that time, well, that was about 5 years ago, we bought a cabin that was an Airbnb that's 4 hours from my home. And I now regularly go there, probably quarterly, for about 3 days by myself. And more work gets done in my brain, in my body, on paper than anywhere else. I just keep tons of Post-it notes and they stick all over the walls. And I do the tactical stuff, but I also do the sit on the balcony with a cup of coffee and just think
Yeah.
and envision my practice. And it's necessary.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just am imagining you with, like, a little cup of coffee,
Always.
enjoying your little cabin. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm a little bit curious about the transition that you talk about with your teams. What was that like going from the lack of core values and mission to bringing your team along the journey of, like, "Okay, we're gonna pivot. We're going to really focus on new goals." Was that hard? Like, was change management difficult? Were they on board? I'm just so curious about, like, if somebody wants to change that in their practice today,
Yeah.
what can they expect or what should they prepare for?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that it's not comfortable, and you lose a lot of people, and you're scared when you lose them, but you look back later and say it was right for them to move to a different place. And many people that have left my practice or have chosen not to work at my practice are phenomenally successful in my community. Not at my practice, they would not do well there. So the first thing that we did that I actually, again, admit I did very poorly, and I now teach and train people how to do it. Lots of people who've come into my world and I've talked to have implemented this much better than I did because I'm able to now teach how not to do it, which is tier-based compensation. So performance-based compensation for your whole team. And when I rolled that out, I knew self-motivated people are going to love this. Non-self-motivated people are going to hate this. And I lost over the course of a year when I rolled it out. Again, I rolled it out poorly. I basically worked on it in the background for years and then just showed up for my team and said, we're doing this starting tomorrow, which is not the way to do change management. I lost 20% of my team in a year. And in hindsight, I think it was the right thing for us. It started our path on learners, growers, teachers, trainers. And now when people come to us during interviewing, we explain to them our compensation. And if they don't like it, great. I'm attracting self-motivated people who want to learn and grow. And I'm most importantly, detracting the ones that don't want to do that. And so I think all of culture happens now for me in the hiring. Once you get going and your team's good, you asked, how do you transition? I think the transition's uncomfortable for everyone involved. Change management by itself evokes negative emotion for any of us. And it's science. So it's not about ignoring that. It's about helping your team manage through those, which I've had to learn a whole lot better. But that's where our culture started, even though I didn't realize it, because we were starting to say, these people will enjoy being here, these people won't. And then we were able to grow on that and bring out, hey guys, here's our mission, here's our vision. Help us get there. And one of the big ways we do that is we do strategic planning. We take it very seriously, and we do a survey for our whole team. It's about 17 pages once a year. They are brutally honest, which is another topic we should talk about, how to receive that feedback, which is something you are very good at teaching and training on. But we have them fill out a survey, and then we use that to guide us for strategic planning. And some of it's multiple choice, but most of it is very open-ended, and they are brutally honest in a very good way. And I think honestly, because they're brutally honest, we've created a good culture, because they know that we're not going to punish them for saying negative things about our practice, and we're also going to take action. And they know that because we've done it historically and said, woof, we need to fix that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's created the 17-page survey has created a really great environment for psychological safety. So they feel safe enough to tell you the truth of what they're thinking and how they're feeling, which definitely can be painful sometimes. But then how do we actually make it into an action plan? And how do we create change from this? How do they usually receive it after you start to implement and show them the plan and the path forward?
They're so empowered. They're so empowered. And having an engaged and empowered team, there's so much data on team engagement out there that's ridiculous. But having an empowered and engaged team that knows that their opinion is valued is part of our culture. It's just huge. And we don't want people to wait till a survey, but we have very open door. We have big things in our practice, communication channels, so that anyone that brings a problem has to bring a solution, because they know the solution, and they know it's not just to be annoying. It's because you know the problem better than anybody. You've troubleshooted it. What do you think we should do to solve it? And almost always their solution is what we go with. So that's one of our communication channels in our clinic. We call it our PAWS form. It's problems and workable solutions. And they know it also helps our management team, because no one can come to a manager and just open the door and be like, hey, the anesthesia machine's not working, or hey, two people are, gossiping in the front. Like, both of those things go on a PAWS form, and here's the problem, here's what I did to solve it, here's all the information I know about it, and here's the solution.
Wow.
And it works really. If they open the door and say something, we're like, put it on a pause. And they know, oh, yep, you're right. And they're not upset about that. The other thing about it is, a lot of times they just solve the problem themselves, because they're like, is it worth having to submit the form? I can just fix it.
Yeah, that's kind of beautiful, though, because what you've done is you've created a system that they can go back to, and it's easy to remember. It's step by step, and then they are empowered to say, like, what are the potential solutions? They get into this creator mindset instead of victim mindset, where, if they're coming and they're like, oh, the anesthesia machine broke, or whatever it might be, or Sally's, making fun of Joey, or whatever it is, then they can go in and say, okay, well, if I'm an empowered creator in this environment, what could I actually do? And how can I show up? And I bet that saves you guys a lot of time.
So much time. Yeah. Right? The anesthesia example, this is literally real. Like, it's now my manager, but her or I, whichever, would show up, and there's like an anesthesia machine in our office, right? Rolled in with a Post-it note that says broken.
I've seen that so many times.
We know nothing. Like, we have to spend time figuring out, and then we like go, does anybody know about this? And everyone's like, I don't know. Like, nobody, we don't know who put it in there. We don't know what's broken. So we have to then troubleshoot the thing from top to bottom, or grab a tech to do it. So that was the old. The new is, this is a real pause that it came in and it said, the anesthesia machine number 3 seemed to be leaking when we were seeing this patient. And so I changed it out, and then afterwards I troubleshooted it. I called the anesthesia company, because the 800 number's on the machine. I talked to them. They had me troubleshoot a bunch of stuff. Turns out we need to replace this gasket. Here is the link to purchase the gasket. And I have put a note on it that it is out of service until we get the gasket, and it is in this closet. Okay. Ordered.
Like, click the link,
order. Yes. So yes, it also saves my manager's time, but those are two real examples.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. And if your listeners want the template to our form, they can totally reach out to me. You can just have it. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's amazing. So can I ask, how would it play out the pause system with a Sally and Joey like
Yeah.
gossiping or
Yeah.
something?
So let's say that they're gossiping. And first of all, how often at practices is that even brought to management, right? It just happens. But we have a culture contract that is real important in our practice. Again, we've had people that choose not to work for us after reading it. So everyone has a handbook
Wow.
or a practice policy manual, and those are legal. Yes, they have things in there that are different for your practice than others, but that's to protect you legally. We also have a culture contract, and it is I statements. So I will blank, and it's long, and everyone has to initial each one, and we go through them and read them for new hires all the time, every one of them. And they'll say things like, I will show up for work on time, fed and ready to work. Fed is really important, right? And our team helped grow this, develop this. And I'm going off topic from your question.
That's okay. We'll pivot back. I love the story. The stories are the best.
It's so good. The way that we created this is I had a really good idea of what I wanted in it, and I'd pretty much written it up, but I wanted my team to buy into this and have input. So I showed up and said, if this was the perfect place to work, what would that look like behavior wise? What behaviors would we see and would we do ourselves? And if everyone was doing it, it would be perfect. And that's where it came up. Somebody said, well, half the people come in and go to the lounge and make their breakfast, and the other half of us get started. And it kind of is hard because I don't think they're trying to be mean, but we're kind of feeling a little resentful, those of us that are going straight to work. And I'm like, great, let's add the word fed. Breakfast happens at home or on the way in. It doesn't happen when you get here. So it came from discussion. I'll be honest that most of the words, most of the things I brought up and said, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about me putting this in? And we called our culture contract. And there's a part in it about what gossip is. So we describe it. In my clinic, what gossip is taking a problem or a concern to anyone who can't solve it. It's that simple. And we also have another part in there that says that we are not allowed to speak negatively about any person who works here, any client, any patient, any other practice, any other doctor, any other human or pet in the world. Like it's pretty broad, but it's very easy to call people out by bringing them into our office and saying, hey, can you read number 7? And they read it. And we say, remember, we have this so that we can have a place that everyone likes to be that is safe. And do you feel like your interaction this morning was appropriate? And they're like, no, you're right. And it's that simple.
Yeah.
So my whole team, and if your listeners want our culture contract template, they can have that too. Just reach out to me. You can just have it. I think you should change it for your practice a little, but it's a great framework to start. So because of that, our culture is if somebody's talking negatively about another person in our clinic to someone else, immediately we have number 4. Like everyone, number 4, we can't do that. That's not allowed. So they're already tuned into that's not okay. And my favorite thing in the clinic is we don't do that here. And so sometimes I'll never hear about it. If I hear we don't do that here, it is literally the happiest thing in my life.
Music to your ears.
Are you kidding me? It's culture happening without me. And culture happens without me already. But so that they'll bring that in and say, hey, I overheard this conversation. This is what concerns me, that it was happening. And the solution is, I think you need to talk to them about the culture contract. Great. Because it also says in gossip, our gossip clause or statement says that if it's being given to you, I don't know the exact words, if it's being given to you, you must shut it down and tell them the appropriate pathway. So if you're receiving it, you're just as guilty as the person talking. And so we can catch those pretty fast. And we do bring them in, talk about the culture contract. We don't have to call out the person who turned them in. But they also trust that we're going to address it because it made them uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like such a beautiful pathway. I talk about the same thing. I've done 3BQ, which is a 3 vital question certified coach, since like, I don't know, 2019 or so. And part of it talks about this exact example where you challenge someone to say, hey, I don't think I'm the person to be talking to about this. I actually think you should go talk to the manager about this schedule that you don't like, right? Like
Yes.
talking about it and getting everyone on the floor riled up is only going to deviate from taking care of our patients, focusing on, the vaccines that we got to take care of. It just is a distraction and takes us away from like why we're really here, which is helping the pets, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
And I think the culture contract makes it so that people feel comfortable saying that. They don't have the social pressure to buy into that. And I'm not saying that we're perfect.
Oh,
We
of
are not
course.
perfect at all. But we try, and the people that are in there try, and they know that if we follow it and the behaviors that are in it, it's a better place to be. It's a safer place to be. Psychological safety, which is a word I didn't know even when we were creating it, is a big part of our culture because of it.
It's so cool. I can't wait to share this culture contract with
Yeah, it's so
everyone. It's
fun.
going to be amazing. So I'm curious for the Evolve Vets members and listeners who are interested in starting their own, practice, like what avenues would you recommend to them and what advice would you give to them in this maybe period of weighing their options and maybe a little bit of fear, maybe a little bit of self-doubt, maybe a little bit of excitement and enthusiasm, right?
Yeah.
There's probably a mix of emotions that we usually see from our members, but what advice do you have for people in that world before making and committing to that decision?
Yeah, do it tomorrow. That's my advice.
Just commit.
Commit. First of all, practice ownership is the greatest wealth building tool that veterinarians have. And in the US, the tax code is so favorable to small businesses that the amount of benefit financially from the tax code, if you have a great tax strategist legally, is insane. It's a no-brainer from the financial perspective. From the energy, emotional perspective, you've got to be prepared for it and prepared to like it every day and to choose to like it every day. You could hate it every day. And I've talked to practice owners that are just drowning. And I think maybe I'm oversimplifying. There's so much internal work that changes that. But you wake up and say, I am so grateful to have a practice, to be able to go to work, to be able to employ people in my community, to be a pillar in my community, all these things that I'm grateful for. You have to remind yourself of that. And then you're like, all right, what challenges do I have today? Because I'm going to have challenges today. So I think the fear part, if it's fear of failure, forget that. 99.7%, I think, of veterinary practices survive. Or are successful, insane. So first of all, just throw that out the window. If it's fear of the commitment and the hard work, I think, yes, there's a lot of hard work and commitment. I think I understand the terms boundaries and work-life balance, but I also think you have to kind of be ready to give up a little of that because they become your greatest stressors if you've created a line in the sand that says, I will not answer my phone this weekend. That's not a realistic boundary as a practice owner. I'm not saying it's going to consume your life, but for me, the peace came by saying, I don't have to try to balance everything. I just have to find joy in everything. And this practice gives me the flexibility to do whatever I need to in my personal and professional life. And if I'm on a beach reading lab reports or on a beach talking to an upset client that said, I want to talk to the owner, I don't let that stress me out. But I also don't mind leaving work for half a day to go watch my granddaughter graduate from kindergarten, right? So for me, the peace came by not looking at them as hard lines and not thinking I'm only going to be happy if I can have work-life balance. Because for me, what does that even mean, right? And
Yeah.
I know what people mean by it, but when they actually are thinking about the line in the sand, why are we making something that we probably can't keep, because if our happiness depends on attaining it and it's not really attainable, then we're never happy.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
found integrating them in a way, and I have plenty of time. Like, we're sitting here, I'm not even worried about my practice. I'm with my grandkids, not worried about my practice. At my practice, I'm not turning my family off. And for me, that's where my pieces come from. But you have to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Like, it's all going to weave together and flow together.
I absolutely love this answer because this is exactly what we lean into at the Evolve Vets. It's this combination of like, if you're living in accordance with your authentic values at work and at home, then maybe there's this merge. And when you're living in flow and you're connected to the things that light you up and make you excited, and you're practicing gratitude and prioritizing yourself, then maybe it does look like, filling out customer calls or calling people back on a Sunday. Maybe that's what it is, right? But then maybe that also means on a Wednesday you're flying to an amazing conference and then spending a day at the beach, right? That's what I did here, right? I took the whole week working from St. Louis last week, flew in on Friday, really early morning flight, and then ultimately took half a day to just go to the beach and relax. And then I was able to show back up to the conference restored. It tapped into my authentic value of adventure, which is like, okay, going somewhere new. But then when I show up to the conference, I'm able to connect with people more deeply because I took that half a day off to rest and relax. So it's not necessarily the hard boundary that makes it right or wrong, but really understanding what about this for me is crossing the line, and how do I find harmony between everything, so that way when I do travel, I can still show up as my best self and not just run myself ragged, but also staying central to the things that make me me, and also being vibrant and excited and enjoying the places that you traveled to as well. So for me,
I love it.
the adventure source is part conference, part innovation, part meeting people and getting to know people, but also part relaxing in the amazing place that I'm in.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. Yes. And I totally get when people say they need boundaries and they need work-life balance. I understand what they mean by that. I just think some people dive so hard into the hard line that they feel guilt if they cross it one way or the other. And that isn't peace. That is an internal peace that I have found by saying, it's okay. One of the things that's big for me is if an upset client wants to talk to the owner, I want to talk to them. I actually love talking to angry clients.
Me too. Is that weird? Are we weird? I don't know. I love it.
It's data collection.
I want to know. I want to know everything. Tell me everything.
And if they're calling me, they're one of the few people that's going to call instead of just disappear. Tell 17 people, which is the data that shows if you're upset, you tell 17 people, which then also tell people. And then we talk about platforms, they're getting on the neighborhood apps and the, writing reviews. This person actually took the time to tell me. Even if they're yelling and mad and cussing, they're telling me. They care about my business in enough of a way to do this. So I don't care where I am. If there's an upset client, I want to call them faster rather than slower. Because they're just getting more upset if I wait. And I've called a lot of upset clients from hotel rooms, and it's actually a great place to call them from because I'm just alone with them and I'm not in my business. And my team knows, first of all, we did a lot of training on de-escalating. So most things never get to me.
Right.
My management team, but also my reception team, my techs, they all know how to de-escalate stuff. There's certain stuff everyone has a $50 rule. If there's a problem over $50, anyone in the clinic can just fix it.
Yeah.
And it's on them. So I love that. The receptionists have a lot of power there. If the person's being mean to them, they're not going to give them a benefit. But if the person isn't, and they're nicer or they're upset and they might have some validity, which most people, I think 80% of the people that are upset, we had a communication error with.
Yeah.
They can just fix that. So rarely do things come to me, but I'd rather be in a hotel room or on my balcony on a cruise talking to that upset client and not feeling guilt about doing that.
Right. Yeah. No, I live my life the same way, and that's how I've found the most balance and harmony and excitement and joy for everything when it can intertwine and it doesn't have to be strict or following a specific schedule. So I love that you're very similar. Maybe it's a little bit of the entrepreneur in us that really highlights the flexibility piece because our brain is always thinking of new ideas or new ways to do things, which is amazing. Sure. So, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like being a mom as you're, going through vet school, applying to vet school, graduating, starting your own practice and, buying into a practice? What was that like? And were there moments that you felt maybe challenged or tested? Were there seasons that you had to make pivots? Like, what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I am glad that social media didn't exist when I was a young mom because there weren't a lot of people to make me feel guilty for my decisions. And I think now it's really hard. The universe is watching you and doesn't know you and is going to give opinions that maybe get into your head. So when I first got my first job with this solo vet that was my vet for 20 years, we sat at a table and she said, I don't know how to do this. I said, I don't know how to do this. And she opened her books to me and she said, we were ambulatory only. So she said, I don't, just buying a new truck for you, a new truck bed and filling it is going to cost me like a lot of money. And I don't even know if my clients are going to see you. Like, I don't really know how this is going to play out. I don't know what I can invest. I don't know. And it was a very comfortable conversation. And she basically said, listen, I've crunched the numbers and this is going to make people panic. But she said, I think I can offer you a straight salary of $30,000. And I was like, awesome. That sounds great. Like, perfect. This is 1999. And I'm like, perfect. But I said, at 30,000, I've got 2 kids. I certainly want to have more kids. I'm not sure that that's going to help me daycare wise. So we sat and talked and we came up with this really creative solution, which was I was going to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. She was going to work Monday through Thursday, which she'd never had a day off in 20 years. And we were going to share the truck. That way she didn't have to invest in a new truck. And I was going to take call because we're 24/7 call 4 nights. So I'd pick up the truck from her on Thursday night and I'd give it back to her Monday morning. And I scheduled my appointments during that time from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I did 12-hour shifts of scheduled appointments. Back then, we didn't have cell phones. So really, everyone was just scheduled your morning or afternoon, and people were fine with that. Nowadays, people, would not be fine with that.
Yeah, yeah.
But back then, it worked. And I generally worked from about 7 a.m. till about 10 p.m. with calls because I'd get an emergency that would shove it down. And then I had night emergencies probably every other night. So I would work about 60 hours total during those 3 days, 4 nights, and at 30,000. And I was home with my kids Monday through Thursday. And it gave her clients the opportunity. I was the only vet in town working weekends. So they could, it was easier for me to slide in because they'd say, of course you can see Dr. Page on Thursday. But if you would like a Saturday appointment, you can see the new doctor. And a lot of people would grab me on the weekends because it was more convenient. Most people worked Monday through Friday.
Right.
There was no virtual working back then. So I was able to get a high client caseload really fast. Clients were choosing me, I wasn't being forced on them. Everything worked perfectly. So as a mom, it was phenomenal. I'm home with my kids. I'm room mom. I'm running the school carnival, but I'm also working my tail off. Now, I did that. Very quickly, we got another truck because she was like, oh, yeah, you can generate revenue. And I was like, yeah. So then I started working the 2 flank days. So I started working Mondays and Thursdays. So my days off were Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, what this did for me, I did this for 15 years. I never saw my son play football. I don't care.
Yeah.
He had a stand full of people playing football. I was room mom on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I was very involved in their school. I drove for all the field trips that were on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which were most of them. My husband and I ran the carnival at this school for 22 years because we continued to have children. So we were at the same school for 22 years.
Oh.
And I was very involved. I picked them up from school. I drove them home. I was home 2 days a week. And I think there was one time when someone said to me, I would never want your life. I can't believe you never saw your son play football. And I'm like, it was the first time I was like, oh, I should feel guilty about this. And I was like, I don't care. Like, he didn't need me there. And what's really cool is I now have adult children who are incredible human beings who now I can look back and go, okay, phew, like they
You
did
turned out
turn out
okay.
okay. Like that one conversation with one individual really threw me and it made me question everything. Am I doing things right? Did I do things right? Have I messed my children up? Should I have been there with them on the weekends? Should my husband and I have been together more because we weren't together at all during that time? And yet we had a strong marriage. We were okay. And that guilt stayed with me forever. Like I continued for years to think, is this okay? Should I not do this? And now I have these adult children. I have 5 children. One's 17, so she's still at home. She's incredible. But my 4 adult children are huge. They're impactful in their community. They're good human beings. They're contributing to the world. They're hard workers. They care deeply about the people around them. They're just good. One of them even became a veterinarian.
Wow.
Like, I
That's
know.
amazing.
So I think if you have little children and you're thinking someone's making you feel like you need to be at everything and be everything to them, I think that you need to look internally and say, what can I do? Like for me, car time became very intentional. Anytime I was in the car with my kids, there was a time that my kids went to 4 different schools and we had no buses. They all went to it was crazy. I don't know how we dealt with that, but we did. And we drove them to all of them. And they were also in events. And so car time became purposeful. Like we were going to talk in the car. We're going to hang out. We're going to talk about your day. We're going to talk about life. And a lot of times I was with one kid at a time. And I have a great relationship with my children then and now. So I think I'm very fortunate that I was in a time when I didn't have 1,000 voices telling me that I was doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It's a long answer.
No, don't apologize. I love the stories. It's so inspiring because we do have moms in our group that are going through the same thing, this guilt that comes with it. Code blue. When you hear that in the emergency room, it means a patient is coding. Everything stops. All hands lean into the highest priority. That's the energy of Code Blue coaching. It's one-on-one intensive program that I built if you're in or headed towards burnout and overwhelm right now. By using my proven Evolve Vets method, we'll walk through a 6-month program, helping you regulate your nervous system, understand your patterns, shift your limiting beliefs, and design an authentic action plan just for you. So come join me so we can bring you back to life. So when it comes to resolving guilt, like, do you have any best practices or things that really worked for you? Or because we've kind of mentioned it at a few points in the podcast. And so it's something that we battle as
Yes.
females in this profession, or probably females everywhere,
Yes.
probably people everywhere, right?
Right.
So when I think about like things that get me through the guilt, it's getting to a place where I'm at peace, like, and I'm so aligned with saying no or yes to something
Yeah.
that I can just say, okay, someone might judge me for this, but I'm confident in the decision that I made, and that's the best choice for me at that time.
Yeah.
And I can kind of shed a little bit of that. So I'm curious, like, I haven't been a mom yet, so I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, how that maybe plays in there.
I'm a spiritual person, and I think prayer has been a central part of my life, and that has been helpful. I think living in a town where all of our extended family lived meant that my kids were so supported and loved and passed around and fought for. Can they spend the night? That I didn't have to be everything to them. They had so many people that were there as well as I was. I I I forgot it, but I didn't feel that guilty. Like I just
Amazing.
didn't.
I love
And
it.
maybe that makes me a crazy mom. I feel like in a way I was like having kids and being like, here you go. Here's another one for y'all to play with. And for me that it worked. I don't know. I think at 15 years in, I did back off weekends. By then, I figured out how to hire associates that liked being there, and I felt, how to take care of them appropriately. Now we call it mentorship. Back then, I just figured out we have to do something differently. And I was able to back off of weekends. And I kind of missed my weekend shifts because the weekend people it's a different vibe.
It is.
But then we started to be really intentional about Sundays. Sundays were an intentional time. So it was family come over time. So anyone can come to our house after church on Sunday. And generally on Sunday night, we did movie night too. So people came in and out of house all the time. My kids' friends were always over. We made the house where their kids wanted to be, which was nice. I feel bad that I didn't have more guilt. A little bit. I'm guilty that I didn't have more guilt. I knew I was building a life. I knew that I was happy, and if I could be happy, I'd be a better mom. And I was
Mm.
inspired by moms that stayed home with their kids, and I read a million books on it. But I was also very intentional when I was available to my children. And there's great data. One of my favorite books, I read it about every 3 years, is called it's 168 Hours.
Oh, I love that book.
It's so good.
I've read it several
And
times.
yes, and there's data in it. There's science that talks about it. And the science was like stay-at-home moms, how much time they spend intentionally with their kids. And this is no shade, but it was attainable. I was like, oh, in a week they spend this much intentional time with their children. I can do that. I
Yeah.
can do that easily. I just have to be very purposeful with it. And it then reminded you have 168 hours. So I'm like, okay, I have 168 hours. If I'm working for 60 and I'm sleeping for 50, I still got 58 hours. What am I doing with that 58 hours? I can be really purposeful with my children in 58 hours.
That's beautiful. I love it. I noticed that my sister had a baby in the last year and a half or so. And it's been really beautiful watching her show up very intentionally. I feel like it's made their bond really strong. And then I think it's also like making her learn at a much faster rate. She's so emotionally secure, like secure attachment. She's curious and safe. And, it's just created this like very beautiful way of like seeing a mom and her kid interact, and I think it's because she gets home, she puts her phone away, and she's like, "All right, we're gonna play with our toys, and we're
Yeah.
just gonna be intentional, and it's gonna be great." And, like, that's very inspiring to me, so I love that you found that as, like, part of your answer
And
too.
it doesn't mean that all 58 hours I have to be intentional with my kids. Like that would make me crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
I love them, but I love them in parts, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
so in that there's also alone time. There's also veg out time. If you really now we're doom scrolling, like I don't know how healthy that is. It's quite the dopamine hit. I'm very guilty of it. But back then, what was the guilty pleasures is I really like Jeopardy and my parents really liked Jeopardy. I I want to watch that with my parents. Like that was a good thing. So I'm not saying you have to like do nothing else in your life. If you've got hobbies, do hobbies. But plan those into your life and you have more than enough time to do all the things that you want and be a really good parent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. Okay, so we at the Evolve Vets, I'm releasing a masterclass, which is really exciting, this week, all around feedback. And when you think about feedback and giving and receiving feedback, oftentimes the things that we hear are we're worried that it's going to impact our relationships in a negative way. Maybe we won't be liked. There can be maybe people pleasing tendencies where we don't have the conversation because we want to keep the peace. But in reality, maybe that builds resentment, or we're not giving and honoring the other person on the other side. We're not giving them the opportunity to grow because we're not having that conversation. And so I'm curious, from all your years of lovely management and leadership experience and developing the veterinary MBA, what is your perspective on feedback? Do you have any stories for us surrounding this topic?
Yeah. So, in terms of practical things that we do now in our clinic, I think let's back up though and say if you're at a clinic and you see a manager bring somebody in the office and close the door, immediately the vibe in the whole practice changes. Like there's a wave of what's going on. Is everything okay? Oh my gosh, is she going to tell us what they're talking about later? Is this person getting fired? What's going on? That is very disruptive to a culture. And again, I love to talk about my failures because I don't care. They happened. And one of them was at my clinic, I was the manager and leader and all the things I shouldn't have been trying to do myself, but I was for a while. And I came in one day in plain clothes because I wear scrubs when I was at work. On my day off, I came in plain clothes, and someone said to me, "I hate when you come in plain clothes because I'm always wondering if it's me that's getting fired."
Oh,
Is that crazy? And I was
yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done?" And I was coming in to fire somebody. Like,
Oh,
I
so
was
they
like,
they knew.
this is valid. Like,
Yeah.
I've created this and it is real. Also, I was very bad at hiring. So we did have a lot of people that we let go. And again, all on me. I hired the wrong people into our practice. And by the time we'd let them go, they were always, they'd always, not their fault. It had always become a problem at some point. So we weren't good at onboarding or orienting them either. So I realized that was kind of a hit, like, ooh, this is not good. So that was feedback for me that was very helpful. Now in our practice, one thing we do is, and I have a whole org board and managers and middle managers, and everybody has a set amount of people that are, I'm going to say, under them, because that's the way I like. I like the old school org board. When I got my MBA, I learned all about the circles and the flats and the other kinds of org boards to not make people feel about hierarchy. But the reality is, in our practice, it's about who can help you. That person on the org board that's right above you is the person that can help you, not the person that's like enforcing rules. And so anyone who manages any human, they're responsible to meet with them quarterly for a one-on-one. So they write down everyone they manage, which might be 5 people. It really shouldn't be more than 5, but I do have a manager right now who's managing like 17 people because she's my small animal manager, and she's going to get some middle management herself. She has to meet with those 17 people one-on-one every quarter. So she has all their names on a piece of paper, and once she meets with them, she just does a check mark for the quarter, and those are turned into me. I don't even make them turn them in. I just say, "Did you get them all done?" The answer is yes. But now we have a lot of closed door meetings that are positive, and those one-on-ones are, how are things going? They're 5 minutes. How are things going? Is there anything I can do to support you? How are you doing in your own career here? Is there anything that you want to learn? Are there any areas that you feel like you need more training in? Are there things you don't like doing that we can help you? Are there conversations with clients that you feel uncomfortable with that we can fix? And then we also might have, is there anything going on with you? It seems like you've had a lot of tardies, and we need to correct that, obviously, because that's impactful to the team. But are you okay? Like, it is a very well done one-on-one. So now when 2 people go in the office and the doors close, there's not that wave of weird that goes through our practice. So feedback becomes, that part has changed dramatically. And we stop our culture contract has really changed how we do feedback, because we literally bring them in and say, "Can you read number 8? Hey, let's talk about this morning. That's not like you." And it really is impactful impacting our culture in a negative way because of this. And I do make them actually read it out loud, and they're like, "Oh yeah. Yeah, that," and they usually are like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right." It's so easy. So those 2 things have changed how feedback is given and received. And then also, when you empower your team and tell them that their ideas matter, then their feedback to you, negative feedback to say, "Hey, this is a horrible way to do this. You need to address this," becomes like, "Oh, thank you. Let's talk about this. How can we fix this?" When that conversation is like that, feedback becomes a whole lot easier.
Completely agree. I love that you highlighted too that positive feedback is just as important as the constructive feedback. That's a huge point and amazing takeaway. I think sometimes when we hear the word feedback, our brain automatically jumps to fight or flight, like, oh no, feedback, feedback, this is scary. But sometimes it's okay if we kind of recalibrate the meaning of that word and how we use it. And if we start to use it as like, hey, here's some positive feedback, here's some constructive feedback, but we're all growing and learning. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be scary. We have the opportunity to use this as a way to look forward. I'm curious, like, it sounds like you've had this really incredible journey of getting to a place of being very curious around feedback. Has it always been that way, or has it been, for me, younger in my leadership journey, feedback was really hard, and I
Yes.
would take it very personally, and it was hard for me to be very open minded and curious. So I'm wondering, did you have a similar path, or how did you get to this place of deep curiosity and just saying like, thank you for sharing. It hurts a little bit, but let's dive in.
Yes. Well, journey is probably the right word. I think it was pretty organic when I'm realizing that I have to outsource stuff to other people and delegate stuff to other people, and they're going to do it differently than me. And so the relinquishment of control was probably my first phase of that. And I again struggled with that. Like most people, you give something up and then you just take it back. You're like, actually, I'm just going to do that. It's easier. I call it the dishwasher thing because my husband says, like, all our kids were little, it's their turn to load the dishwasher, and he's loading the dishwasher. And I'm like, why are you loading the dishwasher? And he's like, it's easier for me to load the dishwasher than to train them to load the dishwasher. And I'm like, I know, but long term, we need them to load the dishwasher. You got to show them how to load and then you got to go back and show them why they did it wrong. And then you got to show them how to Tetris it appropriately. And he's like, yeah, I just load the dishwasher. And I get that. And I use that analogy myself to say, okay, you've got to relinquish control. Know that they're going to do it differently than you. Sometimes it's going to be better, but sometimes it isn't going to be like you want it, and maybe not as good as you want it or feel like it should be. And you've got to take the 80%. Like I was an 80. If they're doing it and it's 80% what I wanted them to do and accomplishing the same goal, it's okay. It still was hard.
Yes.
Right? So first, relinquishing control and trusting people to execute what essentially was my vision that I was imposing on others. As much as I want to say it's their vision, I want them aligned with the vision, but it's my vision. And aligned people who believe in it will go a long way in our practice. But once I started doing that, then feedback became easier because I'm like, they care about the vision and the mission and the core values of this practice. They care about where this practice goes. They understand what I want goal-wise. How they get there might be very different than I did, but if we can establish this is the outcome that needs to happen or should happen, and we agree that that's the outcome, how you get there, I struggled, but how you get there isn't near as important. So then once that's there and I trust them, now their feedback becomes super valuable. And a big one happened several years ago. Gosh, I think it's been like 6 years ago. I was at a conference and she is my COO. I changed her to that title this year because the clinic can operate without me. I could leave for 6 months. Like she really can do it. Back then she was my general manager and she called me and she said, there's a veterinarian that showed up here. She's a large animal veterinarian and we're going to hire her. And I said, we're not hiring for a large animal veterinarian. Who is this person? And she said, I'll tell you all about it later, but I'm going to offer her a position. And I was like, can I have just a little more information? We don't need a vet right now. And she shared with me that this vet had reached out and I had emailed her back and said, sorry, we don't have a position. And she was moving to Tucson. Her husband was moving to Tucson. He was going to be a medical resident and she was going to live there at least 4 years. And she was a large animal veterinarian and she was interviewing at all the other practices in town. And she came to our practice and said, I know you don't have a position, but I will be moving here and I really would love to hear more about your practice. And my manager was there, took her on a tour, said, we're hiring her. And I was
love
like,
this story.
What? And I said, okay. And I never talked one word to this person. And that level of trust, like that day also told me I had come a long way in terms of trust. And I know that's going off feedback, but I had to trust to receive feedback well. And she said, here's the deal. There's only 12 practices in town. She's going to work at one of them. It's going to be ours or it's going to be another practice that's literally our competitor. She's going to work for us and we're going to figure out a way to fill her schedule. And I was like, I love you because you know my vision, my mission, my core values, and you know she's a good fit. And it was one of the best hires we've ever done.
Oh,
and I wasn't
that's
involved.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I love it when that happens.
Yes. So it's off feedback, but the trust becomes so much more important. Once you have trust and a culture of trust, then feedback becomes thank you. That's the angry client, that's giving you feedback. Your front office was horrible to me. That's feedback. That's not something that I'm like, "Pfft." I'm team centric. I will defend. I will stand between someone being mean, but also let me hear what happened. What's your reality? What's my reality? They're very different. And I'm not going to try to convince you of my reality, but I'm really going to try to learn your reality. And what was your experience? And how can I change something so that somebody else doesn't have that experience
I
moving
completely,
forward?
I love everything about this because while we say it's off the subject of feedback, I also think it's the only thing that really allows the feedback. Like if you can go through that journey, my steps were the same actually, like the delegation and the release, and then, like slowly building trust over time. Like it was very much that same pathway. And when you get to this place at the end where you look back and you're like, wow, they're doing it. Like, okay, I guess we're hiring this vet,
Yes, you're doing it. Yeah.
Those moments are like some of the most special for me as a leader, and I'm sure you too. Probably it was a little bit of shock at
Yeah,
first, but then you're like, okay, we did it. But without being that open-minded, that curious, and without the trust, like I think you need the trust for feedback. I
for
think
sure.
both ways, right? Whether it's the
Yes.
17-page document that your team fills out, like they have to trust you enough that you're going to follow through.
Yes.
You have to trust them enough that like they're a good person and they're here for the right reasons.
Yeah,
It's such a two-way street. And
absolutely.
at the Evolve Vets, when we do our process, there's a 3-step process. So we do meditation. So we understand what the limiting belief is. And maybe that's like, okay, I'm struggling to trust these people with the vision, right? And then we start to choose an empowered belief, and that's under elevation. And we might say, like, okay, I'm safe to trust the people on my team. Like, I've outlined clear expectations. We're on the same path. We've agreed to the same contract. Can I let go a little bit and just say, all right, go run with it. Like,
Yes.
let's see what happens. Check in with me if you need help or advice, and let's brainstorm as partners. You're not alone, but I'm safe to let you make that decision. And then the last step is integration, which is usually where you're tested a little bit,
Sure.
right? Where it's like, okay, are you going to let me hire this person off the cuff? Or,
Yes.
maybe it's, I'm going to be super frank in my feedback. How do you receive the feedback?
Yeah.
And it's like this holistic process of understanding where you're at in like your limiting belief, where you want to go, and then just small changes. It might be saying
Yes.
no. For me, when I first started to receive hard feedback and I was a young leader, it was these moments of just being like, just don't say anything. You don't have to defend. You can just like sit with the feedback. And that's part of the
Yes.
journey, right? Like that's one step of growth.
Right.
Like sitting in the discomfort of what that experience is like. And that might be the small step, right? It's not one day you're bad at feedback and then the next day you're magically good at it,
For
right?
sure.
For me, it was a journey, and it
Always.
still is, right?
Still
like
is.
it's still a journey.
Still
And
is.
it sounds like your path
Yeah.
has been very similar.
Yeah, if somebody else had called me from the clinic, like a tech that had been there 3 months and said, "Hey, I just gave this vet a tour, we're gonna hire her," I would have said no. And the difference is trust, and trust that they understand the vision. So, but also my manager had to trust me to know me well enough and to know that I was okay, because my first thought was like maybe a little, that might be a little bold,
Yeah.
But then you're like, no, this is awesome. Like she cares deeply about our practice and she's thought this through. And there was definitely that trust back and forth. And the surveys that we do, I read every one of them. We do them on paper. We tried to do them electronically. People give, in our practice, way less information if you are doing it electronically. They just kind of go through the steps. If we're doing it on paper, they're writing on the paper, they're writing on the back of the paper. It's a lot. I cannot still to this day sit through and read every one of them. Emotionally. I have to take breaks. I start to feel deep, either upset or anger at times, and I have to back up and think a lot about it. And one of the things that hit me is the questions don't ask, what are we doing well, as much. And I don't need that. I am asking them, what are we doing not well? What do we need to improve on? How could we be better? And of course, they're going to put things there. I'm asking them to give me negative feedback for 17 pages, right?
Yeah, you're probably going to get some.
I'm going to get it. And I'm going to pay attention to it. But sometimes it makes you feel like one person was, and also you can't read tone, right? So you make your own up. Depends on how tired you are, how hangry you are, how caffeinated or uncaffeinated you are when you're reading it. But you are like, she should, like, this is ridiculous. Does she even know how good it is to work here? Like that, those thoughts come, and you asked for the negative and you're reading tone differently. And I feel like, and then I have to take a break and back up and say, okay, I'm literally going to go for a walk. For me, it's usually, I got to get physically outside. I've got to sometimes shoes off. I do have grass, so I can like do grounding like a little bit, which I think is good. It helps me to put my feet in the grass. I think there's about 10 properties in Tucson, Arizona that have grass, and I'm one of them because we have a well. So I can do that, or I can take a walk down my road, which is just beautiful, and just get right with my thoughts, which you could help me so much with, because I'm sure there's better techniques or techniques I could implement that would make that even easier and more effective. And say, okay, she doesn't hate working here. There's things that really bother her, and the way she's saying them is the way she's communicating. That's her choice to communicate that way. It's not because she hates working here. Because literally I'm reading through it going, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, you hate everything here. No, you're answering every question that I asked with, yeah, this area needs to be improved. This has to be improved. And how you write it makes me add a tone that's probably even worse. So I think it is still hard for me. And I think there is a lot of internal stuff that I have to get better at still. But ultimately, every single person puts their name on it, and the name is optional. And that means I have a great culture.
That's so cool.
Yes, it's required that they put their position, because I need to know if this is a problem only in reception or if this is only a problem in large animal technician. So they are required to put their position. And because we have so many people, I really wouldn't know. If people didn't put their names, I wouldn't know who it was. But name is optional. And we tell them, we really like your name on it because a lot of times we want some clarification and we want your help implementing stuff. And a couple of years ago, 5 small animal techs didn't put their name. And I said, our first order of business is to figure out why they didn't put their names.
Wow.
That was
what did you find out?
Part. They didn't trust us, right? So how do we empower them? And we used that strategic planning session to really highlight when we got back and talk to everybody about, these are the things we're implementing. So we started to be much better about communicating it. And that exact one, so there's a lot of little things that you feel like you ask them, if this place could be the best place that you ever worked and you loved driving to work here every day, that's literally a question. What would we be doing differently? And you brace for the answers because you're like, I probably can't do it. And they're like, I wish we had an espresso machine.
Yeah.
And you're like
a $75 espresso machine? Great.
Wait, that's it? That's what you need? And someone put, the garbage can in the bathroom needs to be larger and have a lid on it for reasons that are obvious to a building filled with women. So we paused after going through during our lunch break, and we got on Amazon and we ordered all the things that are going to make their life easier, knowing those things are going to show up before we get back, knowing that there is going to be a message sent. We are caring about what you say. We are buying all the things because that's logical. Like, why did that have to wait till a survey? Because we asked. Like, they probably every time they're in the bathroom, like, oh, I wish this was bigger, but it's not worth talking to people.
You probably forget it too after you leave.
Right,
There's probably like all the patients, and then you're tired and you're calling your boyfriend or whatever it is.
So we sent that. They got an Amazon order while we're still at strategic planning. And the story is that they said that they're like, why do we have this big garbage can? And it was a doctor that recommended it. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's for the bathroom. And apparently she like held it up and paraded around and everyone was like cheering. And
that is literally so funny.
So funny. But that is the type of stuff that made the people who didn't put their name on it realize, oh, they care about what we're saying. And so we were very purposeful about getting a bunch of physical items there. And then we were very purposeful about talking about the changes. And there were a couple things on those two that said that we wanted to follow up. And we said, hey, there were a couple things we wanted to follow up on. If these were your ideas, could you please come talk with us? Because we love that problem that you found, and we'd love to find a solution. And what you're bringing up, we have a lot of questions around. And now they're like, oh, that's why I have to put my name on it. Next year, all of them had their name on it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's literally
But it was I literally said, stop. The first order of business is, how do we correct this? We have a trust issue. They don't trust us to give us negative feedback and not have retaliation. Get fired or get treated differently.
Yeah, they were scared, but you guys resolved that.
Yeah.
So that's such a beautiful story. I love it. I also, I know that you have a daycare or a work center, or I guess a kids center at work for people who are working shifts, right?
Yes.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you support moms at your hospital.
Yeah. So we employ 55 people. One is a male. That's my husband. He's the CFO. And I have a lot of children. I actually have 5 children on earth. I have 5 children in heaven. I was always pregnant. So we want to support families. We love that. All of our outside activities outside of work that we do are all your family comes to them. And what I noticed over the years was a pattern of my technicians would leave after the second baby. And they'd leave because the math didn't math. 2 kids in daycare versus a technician salary did not work. Or in half the cases, their parents watched 1 kid but couldn't watch 2. So both of those problems existed. And I watched this over the years. And these were people that didn't want to leave the workforce. Many of them actually found jobs in other industries that could get paid more. And I know, based on doing the math of vet med and our ridiculous overhead, which is a whole nother conversation, that I couldn't pay them enough. I couldn't raise the wages of all of my technicians enough to make up for that. So watching that problem, 3 things contributed. Watching that problem. 2, the feedback surveys. What would make this place the best place to work? Every year, several people would write daycare, haha. And we'd go, haha, oh, that's so funny. Wouldn't that be fun? Ignoring it, thinking that doesn't fit in the box of vet med. And then the third part, which was most important, which was really taking control of, wait a minute, I don't have to fit in the box of vet med. And COVID taught us that. Those of us that were practice owners during COVID, those of us that were in vet med during COVID, realized that we could pivot our entire industry overnight. We did. We all went to curbside care and we didn't talk to each other. We all just figured it out on our own.
We made it up.
We made it up and it was effective and it was overnight. We all had credit card readers that could go to the car. We had cell phones that could go. We changed our software. We changed how we worked internally. Every system changed for us to be able to stay open and take care of patients and clients. And then after it ended, a bunch of people went back to the old way, completely. And I'm like, wait a minute. I was empowered. We can do whatever we want and we all don't have to do the same thing. So it kind of was enlightening to me to go, what else can we do as an innovator? What else can we do? What are we not doing?
What can we break?
Right. Why are we doing what the practice down the road is? And Veg coming in and making this open concept clinic and people saying that's never going to work. And I'm a large animal vet. I'm like, my whole life is open concept and strangers. Yes. I'm doing everything in front of owners and the strangers that wander up at a barn. I love open concept in large animal. Why wouldn't it work in small? And then Veg showed us it did work in small. And we're like, what? That can work? People like that? Of course they like that. There's no technician that ever brings their dog to our veterinary clinic and doesn't come in the back with them.
Exactly.
Are you kidding? So I think it just hit me we are going to build a daycare center. And how, I don't know. When, I don't know. How it's going to pay for itself, I don't know. But there's for sure we're going to do it. And the opportunity came for us when we were doing an expansion, a physical expansion of our building and a big remodel. So we closed our pet resort, our boarding facility, and turned it into it and the yard. So that was the expansion part, into non-client, non-patient spaces to free up client-patient spaces in the front so that we can generate more revenue in pet areas, more exam rooms, and a larger treatment area. And to do that, we put offices back there, we put bathrooms back there, locker area, cleaning closet went back there, the lounge went back there, like the things that now freed up space up front. But during that expansion, 1/3 of that, we created a 2-room kitchenette, bathroom, daycare center. A full daycare center. It's a child care facility, and it is free daycare for anyone that works at the clinic. Part-time, full-time, doesn't matter. And it has been open now over a year, and it has been literally the smoothest thing I have ever implemented at my practice. It's so easy.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
If this episode is landing, the deeper work lives inside the Evolve Vets membership. It's monthly coaching, vet reset meditation library, and a room full of women who get it. Come move from force to flow and really lean into living your most evolved life. Follow us at evolvevets.com. Who knows, your evolved bestie might just be waiting. It's life-changing. I saw on social media you posting about it, and I was like, this is magical, because I work in ER, so you often see veterinarians and veterinary staff leaving when they get to this stage of life, but they want to still be in it. There's just complicating factors on how.
Yeah.
And my group of vet school classmates, there was like 10 of us, and now several of them have either had to go down to part-time because they're trying to do childcare, or even some of them have had to like take a step back from practice altogether so they can, one, have more, because they couldn't match the hours that were needed and required by their employer, or it just got overwhelming to like pay for the costs of childcare. So it's like such a beautiful thing, and really an innovative spirit to prioritize childcare for the people that work on your team. I love that so much.
If I find out that someone's family is larger because they work for me, I'm like, that's it. That's all I need in life.
Win.
Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. And then obviously, I don't think everyone should have a daycare center. I think everyone should think outside the box. What are the problems in your clinic that you want to solve, and how can you solve them? So for me, that was my problem. That was my solution. But also, it has an ROI on it. So we were doing the expansion, and it's 1/3 of it. And the expansion cost $750,000. So that was $250,000 of expansion, which isn't little bit of money. But if you think of all the things, there's equity, there's tax strategy, there's those rooms are available if I ever want to turn them into something else. If I own the building, so if I sold the building, it's more square footage. Like there's so much more that goes into just then the cost of it. And then maintaining it is super silly because it's so inexpensive. We have 4 team members that work there, daycare people. One is a retired kindergarten teacher, and the other 3 are early childhood ed students at the college. And they, well, actually, one of them works at a preschool in the mornings, and she works for us in the afternoon. They work split shifts because we can't cover them for lunch. So one works 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., and the other comes in at noon and leaves at 6 p.m. And if there's a lot of kids that day, then the overlap gets a little more. They self-regulate that. So I'm basically paying 4 part-time people at reasonable but not crazy high wages. And my payroll for that whole thing for a year is going to be probably just about $60,000. They don't get benefits. They're all part-time and none of them need it. And the first week we opened, one of my technicians came back after being gone for 3 years because she left after her second baby.
Aww.
And she is a perfect culture fit, perfectly trained, back in my practice. And another one of my technicians went from part-time to full-time immediately. Just those 2 things math out at more than $60,000.
Like, wow, that gave me the chills. That's
right. In 1
so
week,
incredible just by thinking outside the box.
ROI'd for itself. And there's no expenses for it. The parents bring resources. So they have a list of resources like paper towels and goldfish. And they just each week when they're at the grocery store, buy one or two things to support it. It's fantastic.
Wow. It's incredible. I love the idea of really taking that feedback, listening to what your people need, and then turning it into like, you know, what we all think is like, oh, that's never gonna happen. That's a cute idea. To like, but like, what if? What if we
Yes.
did? And then taking that idea to bring it to life is just like such a
Yes.
really special part about entrepreneurship and the immediate payoff. Like,
Immediate.
how did that feel to like go from this, haha, maybe in another world to, oh my gosh, like these people that I've loved
Yeah.
and they serve our practice well, they're committed, they're great culture fits, they're skilled,
Yes.
suddenly showing up full time and like ready to be present in veterinary medicine again. Like maybe the answer to sustainability in vet med is just us being, I don't know, going against the grain a little bit.
100%. Yeah. So I now think why not a lot. Like that is in my brain a lot. And I would say how that happened internally was I very actively, probably for the last 4 to 5 years, have been very purposeful about putting myself in rooms with other entrepreneurs, not in vet med. I'm in memberships, I'm in masterminds, I'm in communities. I go to events that have them. And these are people that say, why not? And that encourage you. And being next to other business owners and entrepreneurs that get it is life-changing. My husband is the most wonderful husband and father. He does not get it at all. He does not get why I would rather open an LLC than do the dishes. Right?
Yes,
He
it's a
doesn't
difference.
get that. And I don't need him to get it, but I need to find people who do get it and sit across from them. And so putting myself in the investment, which has been high, I have put myself in very expensive mastermind groups, but the elevation, the why not, has been, I don't know that I would have executed on the daycare center without that. Why not? Why aren't we doing this? What do I need to do to make this happen? And that's been transformative for me. It's why Veterinary MBA has done so much differently and grown the way it has, is the why not.
I love that. So it sounds like your investment in yourself to grow and spending time, energy, money on really investing in this executive coaching mastermind type process is really challenging yourself to open your mind, see things a little bit differently. And it, if I can make some conclusions here, it sounds
Yeah.
like it's paying off.
Paying off like unbelievably.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So at age 50, I had severe chronic neck and back pain. That was 5 years ago. And I was told by doctors for years, I was going to all the doctors, and they said, there's no surgery that can help you. It's all soft tissue. The only thing that's going to help you is for you to quit being a large animal veterinarian. I love my job. There's not a day that I have not loved being a veterinarian. I mean that. I can't think of a day. There are hard days, but there's not a day that I regretted this decision. So giving that up felt like something I didn't want to do. And I fought that for a while. And then I had my first grandbaby. And I have a lot of lightning moments in my life. I think the quiet, soft promptings from God I miss, but he like strikes me every now and then. And I'm like, oh, that's a big one. Okay. And I was holding this baby and I was going to put her in a crib, and my body physically could not lower her to the pain was so great. I couldn't physically lower her. And right then I went, I cannot continue to be a large animal veterinarian. And what does that look like? And it took me about 3 years to significantly decrease my patient load from that moment. But I kind of went into a midlife crisis of, well, what am I going to do with this degree? Because I'm using this degree. And in the middle of this, instead of buying a sports car, I decided to go get an MBA. Why? I did not know, except it was a bucket list thing and I could cash flow it. And I was like, online, I'm going to get this MBA. And I think that started to open my eyes to possibilities and the why nots and the value of investing in yourself. I became a better leader. I became very curious. I became a much better communicator. I was able to take electives, and I took leadership communication, and I was like, oh, I'm really a poor communicator. Oh, let me be better at that. And so I learned that investment in myself paid off. And so immediately started seeking out, how else can I invest in myself? And the payoff has been incredible. And if you had asked me 5 years ago if I would join a $30,000 mastermind, I would have said, no, not in a million years. And it even, like, saying it is almost embarrassing. And that mastermind that I'm in, and I'm in other memberships, has transformed my life and paid me back in incredible ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My executive coaching masterminds that I invest in, it feels scary at the time because it's like, wow, this is a lot of money, you
Yeah.
know, 20, 30, 40,
Yes.
50, $60,000, depending
Right.
on what's going on all at the
Sure.
same time. But these moments where you're having to choose, like, okay, do I believe in myself enough? Am I worthy enough?
Yes.
Do I believe that if I spend intentional time on myself, that it will come back to me and that
Yes.
the universe, like God, will reward that and that it will be
Yes.
this cycle, right?
Yeah.
And so it's beautiful when you take those risks and you get to this place of like, okay, maybe, just maybe, you going to the MBA, investing time in yourself, taking that pause is what led you to creating Veterinary MBA, has led you
100%.
to having these expanded minds, these ideas, like building your really awesome platform. Like this has just been a growth of trajectory. But if you didn't have that moment of pause
Yeah.
and saying like, okay, this isn't working anymore. The universe is redirecting me and on a new
Yes.
path. And like, let's invest in this new path. Like,
Yes.
let's see what's there. Because those moments of just saying like, I'm worthy enough to be invested in,
Yes.
that usually leads to this like skyrocket, or at least in my experience, this
Yes.
skyrocket of unpredicted results that just lead to so much happiness and joy
Yeah.
in the
And
long
that's
term.
exactly what happened. In the second week of my first class of my MBA, I knew what I was going to do with my degree. And I created Veterinary MBA, the LLC for it, right then. I didn't know
Wow.
exactly what it was going to look like, but I knew that I had hit so many speed bumps, so many potholes, I had done so much wrong, and I knew that I could help other practice owners maybe miss a lot of those
Yeah.
and maybe not have to go through all of that to get the outcomes that they want. There's no magic pill that says you're going to have a great practice. You got to put in the work. But let me tell you all the things that didn't work. And now I'm also learning from a curriculum for the MBA, actual practical things that I'm putting into my own practice that I could also share with other people. And how do I find a way to share this with other practice owners? Yeah.
I love that. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about your membership?
Yeah, well, it first started, so I wasn't exactly sure. When I was taking notes and when I was writing papers at 2 a.m. in the morning as a 50-year-old woman while working 60 hours a week and running my practices, questioning life, I started to take a notebook of what applies directly to my practice and then how could I teach this? And so I joined a membership of somebody she's a clinical nutritionist, and she had created courses to help people in nutrition with their own personal nutrition. And then she had been so successful that she created a membership group, a mastermind group I was actually in with her, teaching other people how to create an online platform with courses. So because I was in there, courses was the logical thing. And so over 18 months after I got my MBA, every month I put out 1 or 2 courses live. They were pain points. So if you have this problem, here, let me talk about it. I'm going to talk a lot about what I'm doing wrong, a lot about what's working in my practice. I'm going to bring in a lot of data that I now have and now I'm looking at more. And maybe this is going to help you. And they were pretty successful. People were coming to the lives. They were going into a library. People were buying them organically. And I was having the time of my life because I was getting feedback from people that are saying, oh my gosh, no one has ever explained outsourcing and delegating the way you just did. And now I can actually do it. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I was creating what I wish I would have had those first 15 years, first 20 years maybe. And I did that for about 18 months and was loving it. And then I realized the part that was missing was connection and community. And it took me about a year to realize that. And then I said, I need to get to more conferences with practice owners. I want to hang out with them because going to every conference is really expensive. So I figured out two things. One, if I'm speaking at conferences, I don't have to pay as much to be there. So I get to hang out with practice owners. So I started to aggressively seek out how I would do that. And then I started to try to find conferences for veterinary practice owners, and they're not there. There were very few of them, 2. And I thought, well, why not? Maybe I do a conference. And so that's when I created a live conference, the first one, and it sold out in 2 weeks and 2.5 weeks. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh,
There's a huge need.
there's a need. And we had the first live conference, and I launched the second conference, which was going to be twice as big at that conference last November 26th. For our November 25 launched our November 26th, and it sold out in 12 hours. And I was like, we need this. And so now I have the next 3 planned out. And then I thought, well, what about the people who can't come to the conference? We still want connection and community. And so I created a membership community where we meet in Zoom 3 times a month, but they have access to all the resources. So people still organically, if they have a pain point, they can go to the library and purchase these master classes and workshops and programs, but the people in the membership get access to all of them. And I think it's just a greater path to say, here's all the stuff and here's the community. And we're having a phenomenal time in that community.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that. That's
it's
so
so great.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It all started with a little bit of risk, and then it
Yeah.
like just turned out you followed your heart, you were passionate, you
Yeah.
found the right solutions, and
Yeah.
it led you here, which
Yeah,
is
it
amazing.
started with a
Can't wait to see where it
crisis.
goes. Yeah,
Right?
I
Like
guess that's
most good
true. It started with a
things.
crisis.
Yeah, which like most good things, like what am I going to do? And now I still am in my clinics. Every day that I'm home, I'm in both of my clinics. I still see patients. I see them much less regularly because of my physical limitations. We have 2 doctors that are pregnant in large animal, and they're going to have an overlap. So in December, I'm back as a full-time veterinarian, which is going to be super fun for me to do for a
Aw,
month. And then my
yeah.
body's going to say, and we're done.
Yeah, time to take a break again.
Let's go
Aw.
back. But it has been an incredible journey. And we talked a little bit about this because this is your zone of expertise. But when I'm in these mastermind groups, whether they're virtual or live, most of them have live events. Initially, there was what I would call, oh gosh, they're going to do this woo-woo stuff. I'm not here for that. And that has clearly been the most transformational part. And it took me a long time to acknowledge that, because when I walked into the room and we're sitting in chairs and we're learning stuff and I'm taking notes, I'm like, yes, this is why I'm here. And then we go to lunch, we walk in the room and there's yoga mats on the floor. And I was like, nope, this is not, are we doing yoga? And she's like, nope, we're doing breathwork for an hour. And I'm like, I don't want to do whatever that is. And now I just don't know how I would self-regulate without those things that I learned. And I was telling you, the last one I went to, we were near a beach, and this might sound wonderful to people, but I'm not a beach person. I'm not a sand person. And my hair is not either of those either. And we had to lay in the sand, directly on the sand. And they did sound baths, which I didn't know what they were until we did them. And literally the first things in my mind are, this is such a waste of my time. And then I was like, oh, geez, the thoughts that flow, the ideas that come to you when you just let your body release. I had to be like, okay, this was probably the most important part of this whole retreat.
It really is. It's what I believe in the foundation of why I started the Evolve Vets is the work really does come from within. Of course, like there's things that happen and circumstances in life that arise, but if you want to grow and be the best version of yourself, that really takes the internal work. And sometimes that's being uncomfortable, doing a sound bath or taking a break from the to-do list, like we were talking about earlier, to prioritize your own growth and development. And so, yeah, the sound baths are sometimes the things that bring forward the best ideas, or the solitude that we were talking about earlier too, which is amazing.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We always ask one question, and then I'd love to hear how people can contact you. So the final question is, if you could give advice to any, young female, maybe aspiring leader or aspiring veterinarian, what advice would you give to her?
Yeah, surround yourself with people that are going to uplift you and affirm you, and distance yourself from the people that aren't. And I'm not saying knock them out of your life, but recognize that they're not the people that are going to get you where you need to be. And you need to find the people that are going to get to you to where you want to be, and even higher than that. So I think that has been part of my journey for sure. This has been so fun, and I'm
Yay.
so grateful to have been invited on. People can reach me just through my website, which is veterinary-mba.com. And if you want the pause form, if you want the culture contract, you can just reach out to me through that. I also live on Instagram, which is veterinary_MBA, and you can DM me that way as well.
I love it. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much for being on. And together, let's stop revolving and start evolving. Thank you so much for listening to the Evolve Vets podcast. It truly means the world to me. If this episode supported you or sparked something new in you, please go to evolvevets.com to become a member or join our coaching program and truly continue this work beyond the podcast. Let's evolve together.